Teamwork isn't just nice to have in business, it's the undisputed competitive advantage. When your team members work as a unified force, your whole operation benefits through higher productivity, thriving creativity, and unstoppable momentum. Welcome to the Impactful Teamwork Podcast, where we share with you strategies and tactics to help you develop game-changing teams so that you and your business can make a real difference in the world.
The concept of flow and the power of experiential learning is really what I want to delve into today on this week's edition of Impactful Teamwork. Welcome, my name's Julia Felton, and I'm going to be your host and guide. As we look at the concept of flow, teamwork, and how that relates to experiential learning, and I've really been prompted to share this information with you today because I've just come back from running a leadership development retreat with the horses. And I think it's two things that have really prompted this. The first is really the power of engaging in experiential learning and the insights and ahas that people get when they actually get to embody what leadership looks like. So for people that aren't familiar with equine facilitated leadership, we curate experiences with the horses where people come out and lead and work in teams with the horses. And it's always super powerful because people get feedback on their leadership style. Now, many of you will lead team members, and trust me, the horse is ruthless in its feedback. If you're not an inspiring and compelling leader, the horse won't go with you. But neither will your team, but usually your team are too polite to tell you that. So when working with the horses, you get the opportunity when something isn't working out to try again and do something different. Because the outcomes that we get in business are all related to how we show up. So it's all to do with our energy and our presence. And a lot of people are quick to say, oh, the horse is misbehaving, the horse doesn't like me. What do you need to do differently to get a different response from the horse? And actually, that's the same thing that we need to do in business to get a different response from our team members. And the second reason that I was prompted to share with you a little bit more about flow is because what I really observed, and I've known this to be true for a while, but I really embodied it, I guess, this week, was that I am in flow when I am facilitating equine facilitated leadership workshops. That's my happy place. That's where I feel really energized. It's the space where time just flies by and I'm like, oh my God, we're at the end of the session. It feels like we've just started. So I wanted to share some research that I did as part of my Magnus Opus, which was when I was training with Stephen Kotler and the Flow Collective on how to create high performance leaders and teams. I had to do a piece of research, and my research was on experiential leadership and flow and how they combine together. And I thought it might be really interesting to share a few of those bits with you. So I'm just going to share some of those facts and figures from you, the research today. So let's start by just putting a few definitions around this. What is flow? Flow is an optimal state of consciousness. It's a peak state where we both feel our best and we perform at our best. And that's a definition from Stephen Kotler. It's a state where time feels like it stops and you're in perfect harmony with what you're doing. And you're what we might call in the zone. The work on flow has been derived from a lot of research by a gentleman called Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi. I can't even pronounce it. And he describes it as a state of optimal arousal, and it's the sweet spot of peak performance. And when we access this, we dramatically improve our productivity and creativity. So some of you might, if you think back, have experienced this flow state when you're doing activities that you love. Maybe it's running, skiing, playing the piano, writing. It's almost like you get transported to another dimension. So, flow is largely a subjective experience. It's a mental state of high concentration and hypervigilance. It's characterized, though, by profound mental clarity, heightened situational awareness, emotional detachment, and an automatic nature. It's like we don't think about doing it, we just act fluidly and effortlessly. It's like our intuition is super heightened and we just know what to do. A lot of people, when they're in flow, and Stephen Kotler talks about this in a number of his books, when people are in flow, we do things that we didn't even think were possible and logically don't even seem feasible. But when you're in the zone, you've got this amazing periphery vision about what's going on, and you just see so many different things. You just think about it. Let's take a simple example, a footballer on the pitch. When they're really in the zone, they've got that periphery vision going and they see what their opponent's doing, or they see their colleague passing the ball up the field, and they're able to get into the right situation and just create that goal scoring opportunity. So what does that mean? It means that flow can't happen when we're distracted, because that takes us away from our focus. So really, to experience flow, we need a distraction-free environment. And we've spoken a lot on this podcast about the importance of attention. And that is, we can only have great attention and focus if we're in that distraction-free zone. The other thing about flow is it really can't happen in situations where we don't feel motivated or we don't care about what we're doing. So to experience flow, you've really got to be intrinsically motivated to whatever is going on around you. So there are three vital figures for achieving flow, and they are that we've got the right challenge and skill balance, because we want something that's challenging and going to push us, but not so challenging that it's not stretching us and we end up being bored and anxious. So we've got to get this right balance. Too much challenge can actually send us into a state of anxiety, and we don't think it's possible. So we just need to get that right balance right. It also involves clear goals. We need to know what we need to accomplish for the task. And the other really important thing about a trigger for flow is that we need to get unambiguous feedback so that we can immediately interact with the environment and see how we're progressing towards the goal. And actually, these factors really map very nicely onto the cyclical framework of experiential learning. So they really provide a model of how we can help people learn better. Because in experiential learning, you really want to start with having a clear goal about what you want to do, then reflect and observe on what's going on so that you can digest the experience, and then go into some introspection about what you could have done differently to get a different result. And once you've done that, how you get a different result is then you try things again. So this is what the power of working with the horses is doing, is it's helping us try something, get some feedback on whether it works, and then try it again. So understanding a little bit about flow states and how the experiential learning cycle works enables me, when I'm working with my clients, to design experiences that keep the learners really highly engaged. And we know that when the learners are highly engaged, they're in an optimal state for learning. So Kotler identifies 12 triggers for individual flow. And these include curiosity, passion, and purpose. So we're only going to get into flow when we're doing something that we love to do, when we've got some autonomy around that particular thing, and then we've got complete concentration. There's some degree of risk, some degree of novelty, and some degree of complexity. We also get into flow also when there's some degree of unpredictability. We're not really quite sure of the outcome. but everything is deeply embodied. We also need to ensure that we're going to get some immediate feedback. We've got some clear goals. There's this right challenge risk ratio that we spoke about earlier on. And there's some creativity and pattern recognition going on. And when I think about the experiential leadership events that I curate with the horses, believe that over 80% of these flow triggers are activated during those sessions. Because I think most people could probably agree that coming out and learning leadership from a horse is a pretty novel thing to do. It incites curiosity in people. They're like, what can I learn from a horse? But there's also some unpredictability, right? And some degree of risk about how things are going to turn out. And as we said, the great thing about working with the horses is the immediate feedback. They don't sugarcoat that feedback. You get it immediately. They say it as it is. And some people say to me, oh, as I said earlier on, Julia, that horse always behaves that way. But what's super interesting is when we work with a team, people work with the same horse and you can get completely different results. So one person can effortlessly lead the horse around the arena and another person struggles to get the horse to move. And why is this? It's because the horse is connecting with your energy, your level of attention, your ability to set direction, and your congruence. What we know from wild horses is that a horse will give up leadership, but only when it feels that you are able to keep it safe. And all horses are concerned about the health, harmony, and unity of the herd. But actually, so are your team. Your team will follow you when they feel that you're paying attention, you recognize them, you provide them with a sense of belonging, you know where you're going, you're authentic, and you generate just the right amount of energy to move the project forward. I think the other really interesting thing about flow is the fact that the VUCA environment, so volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environments that we work in now, really ignite flow. Because whether we like it or not, they help create a situation that is a bit novel and complex and unpredictable. And so this is what helps people get into flow. So actually, it's interesting, isn't it, when we think about this? Getting into flow happens more in the volatile environment that we live in now than it did in times when we were very stable. So when we actually understand that these VUCA conditions can actually help us trigger flow, this can be a catalyst for enhanced performance and growth. And so rather than being paralyzed by these VUCA conditions, the uncertainty in which we currently live, we can actually harness this to stimulate flow and become more productive and innovative. So there are a number of different steps to flow, and I just want to share those with you because I think it's really important to understand this. The first stage of flow is struggle. And it might first seem like the opposite of flow, but it's when you're working really hard, you're pushing to train, research, brainstorm, and it's when you're overloading the brain with information and until it feels like your head is about to explode. We see the struggle, for example, in Olympic athletes, when we're seeing them going out every single morning, that repetition to train, going through really tough times to get there. The challenge is that a lot of people never push past this first stage, which is why they consistently miss the doorway to the flow experience. So we've got to go through that struggle first of all. Then the second stage of getting into flow is relaxation. Now, this always sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? But I'm sure you've all experienced this. When you take your mind off a problem completely, you can maybe go for a walk, you take a break, maybe you watch TV, you have some other distraction going on. This enables the conscious mind to let the subconscious mind take over. And it's when the subconscious mind takes over that we get all of these great ideas. I don't know about you, but I always get a load of my great ideas in the shower or when I'm out riding my horses or in the fit paddock with the horses. It's when I'm not really thinking about things that something else comes up. And one of the challenges in the workplace is that we are really remiss at moving into this phase of relaxation. We miss taking a break and we just keep thinking we need to go. But when we're constantly overloaded, we end up in burnout and we miss getting into flow altogether. So we've got struggle, then relaxation, then we get into the state of flow itself. Stephen Kotler describes this as the Superman experience when inspiration takes over and where your preparation and relaxation express themselves almost magically. This is when you come up with the best ideas, you achieve results almost effortlessly, and often you surprise yourself by your own performance. Sometimes it's almost like an out-of-body experience, whether it's mastery of a physical, emotional, or mental activity. So we've got struggle, relaxation, flow, and then we move to consolidation. This is the final step of flow. And this is where learning and memory is really amplified dramatically. And this is when we consolidate the experience of flow into your unconscious. But there's also a downside, of course. When we come off the high of feeling so good, the neurochemicals released during the flow state, we end up dropping into a low. And that can, if we're not careful, lead to self-sabotage or our emotional reaction and trying to regain the flow state. So it's really important when this happens to not let the stress block the learning or reverse the results of being in flow, but move smoothly back to the next phase of struggle and repeat the cycle. So I hope sharing that cycle really helps you understand a little bit more about flow and how to get into it. Now, of course, we're all talking about teams, and group flow is really important. And group flow occurs where everyone is in the same energy frequency. And this can lead to really profound learning and transformation experiences. And there are 10 situations that Stephen Kotler identifies that trigger group flow. And these are complete concentration, shared goals, shared risks, yes and, close listening, autonomy and a sense of control, the blending of egos, familiarity, equal participation, and open communication. And these are the things I would argue actually make a really effective team. Because actually, when we can get our team all aligned, shared goals, shared risks, great communication, good listening, blending egos, everyone working together with no sort of hierarchy, and everyone is familiar with each other, and we've got equal participation. Then we get a team that wants to work together effectively, and that's when we get amazing flow. And when we get amazing flow, then we get a lot of work done. Flow is the ultimate, I think, of team performance for us. And our role as leaders should be, how do we get our team into flow so that they can deliver more? A McKinsey study revealed that only about 5 to 10% of the work week is spent in flow. Imagine if you could get your team into flow every day, how much more would be accomplished? How much more growth you could see in your company, how much more productivity you could see, how much more profitability. It would be phenomenal. So I'll be talking more about flow and how to create this high performance state on other podcasts, but I just wanted to plant a few seeds today for you on the power of getting into flow and how experiential learning can certainly enhance that. Because I truly believe that when leaders come and partner with the horses, they quickly get into flow. The whole situation triggers the flow triggers to get them into flow. And when people are in flow, they learn more. So I really believe that things like experiential learning provide a massive return on investment for any leader within an organization, because the learning becomes embodied. Team members walk away having really experienced something that's fundamentally going to shift how they show up in the workplace. And then that becomes a very profitable investment for a leader. So all of you, I'm massively passionate about experiential learning. I think it's so important for us to be able to access flow and get into it quickly. So as I said, I will be sharing more information on flow. If anyone would like access to this white paper I have written on flow states and experiential learning, it's all about harnessing flow in equine facilitated leadership development, training to enhance the return on investment of the learning experience. Please do just send me an email at julia@businesshorsepower.com or send me a note on LinkedIn. I'm Julia Felton on LinkedIn, and I will happily share that with you, because this is kind of part of my life's work. Part of when I get into flow is to help other people understand the power of this work. So a kind of different episode today, but I hope you've enjoyed that and it's given you some nuggets for thought this week. And as you're going through your week this week, please think about and reflect on which times are you in flow? What kind of activities are you doing? Because you'll also notice those are the types of activities you've got the most energy for. And that's why you enjoy doing them. So I hope you found that useful. Until next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Impactful Teamwork podcast. Please stay tuned for future episodes and do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on your favorite platform. Recommendations are essential for attracting new listeners. Please follow us on social media at Julia Felton and @Business Horsepower. And if there are any topics you'd like us to cover on future episodes, please do let me know. Remember, you and your team are always making an impact. What impact will you make today?